perspective, um, as well as kind of that UMass campus versus a state university campus as well. So college, what's about and why it matters. So there's a multiple different reasons why students attend college. The basis of it is that hopefully eventually it's to increase your job prospects and your job outcomes so that that way you're able to earn a higher salary down the line. So the reason why most people are attending college are for the job and financial successes that hopefully come with obtaining a degree, either at the 4-year, 2-year, or graduate level programs. What college also allows is for students to become more independent. So once you are in the college system, once you're 18 plus, you are considered an adult. And so therefore everything does go through the student unless the student signs away those rights. So as a parent, if you call asking for your student's grades or student's billing, that can only be released to the parent if the student has signed a FERPA request, which essentially waives their rights to those privacy documents and allows the parent access to them. So really the idea is that we are going to make the student become more independent while they're in college, and it also allows them to discover passions that they might not have known previously. In high school, they're taking kind of very standardized subjects, so English, math, science, foreign languages, but when you get to college, you might have to take a humanities class, or you might have to take a philosophy class, or you might have to take a science class, but it might not be biology. It might be looking at botany. So it really allows students to really explore different areas and different content areas that they may not have the exposure to at the high school level. I know for me, when I started in college, I was English secondary ed, thought I was going to be an English teacher. And for my education program, they really wanted you to take public speaking, which was like probably the worst class that I could ever possibly picture myself taking. But I took it because it was preferred. And I loved communication after that. So I ended up not becoming an education minor, did not do my student teaching, but did graduate with a communication degree in a program that I had never had any exposure to prior to having to take the public speaking class for the education program I was enrolled in. So it really does allow for you to explore different areas based off the courses that you might be exposed to. In college, there's also a lot of opportunity for not just courses, but the opportunities for sports, clubs, volunteer opportunities to really get to know yourself in a different way. I am always very much a proponent of being involved in college. I was a commuter student when I was in college, and so going into it, I knew I had to be very involved if I really wanted that campus atmosphere to really feel like I was part of a campus community at a school that was predominantly resident. And for me, it really came down, especially to the volunteer opportunities. I went to Stonehill for my undergrad. I went to Bridgewater State for my master's. So very different schools, fantastic programs at both. I always say I'm biased towards both because I had such positive experiences. But for me, it was really the volunteer opportunities. So one of them I'm still involved with today, over 10 years later. And I also had the opportunity to travel throughout the US for service trips during my spring break. And it really opened my eyes to social injustice and different levels of poverty right within the United States and what different organizations are doing about it. In terms of clubs and sports, if that's more of a student's passion, most schools will have intramural sports that anyone can participate in. And then they also have the divisional level sports. So sports are available from the community college level all the way up to the D1 schools like BC and BU. Some of those schools, it is a tryout process, it is a recruitment process. Typically, D3 and under, typically no athletic scholarships. If you're thinking athletic scholarships, that's usually at the D1 level. So to kind of temper the expectations of scholarships tied to athletics, depending kind of on the division that you're looking at. And clubs, there's always a wide range of clubs. So that's everything from newspaper to English society to like the anime club. There's always clubs kind of popping up based off of student interest areas. So I know like when I was in school, like they had just started like the K-pop club because that was a big thing at the time. And so as long as you have a group of students who have a similar interest area, you have that ability to create your own club. So college also gives that opportunity for leadership as well. So becoming a tour guide, becoming an orientation leader, taking ownership of a club, being involved in student government. So it's not just about, exploring who you are as a person, but it's also gaining those independent skills and that ability to advocate for yourself. In
I'm just going
terms
to
of
interrupt
me,
for
yes.
1 second. Sorry, Ashley. I think it's really important. I love that slide because I think one of the things that can be translated is these are the things as sophomores and freshmen that we really want to see the students doing here at the high school, right? Because, getting involved, getting, finding kind of their passion within the clubs or the sports or even the courses, the direction. So we're trying to build on that. And I know that the colleges are looking for that as well. So, this is really a time as parents where you can probably more easily encourage that they gain and take part in things at high school than you can when they're at college doing their own thing. So I like how that kind of ties, especially for this group that we're targeting.
So this slide is just to kind of give you an idea of what it means for education. So essentially, the higher education level, the higher the median income there is. So maybe you have a student whose school is not their favorite thing. I have siblings where school is not their favorite thing, but it is tied to earnings long term. And so maybe they are not going to be a professional student. Maybe they're not going for a doctorate degree, but maybe they do want to go for an associate's. An associate's 2-year degree is a little bit less intimidating than 4 or 6 years in school. And so it still increases their earning potential to have that 2-year degree. And if they are taking something like engineering technology, paralegal studies, dental hygiene, nursing, those can earn very strong salaries with just the associate's level degree. Some career paths do require graduate or doctoral level. So that would be anything from nurse practitioner to physical therapist, even the athletic trainer now, that's a graduate level program. Social work, teachers, all those programs do require master's level or higher. So depending on what they're looking at for a career, it could mean looking at that 6+ years of postgraduate schooling and to just be aware of that. I know in high school that can seem really scary and daunting to take on that many more years of school. But what I always say is college moves really fast. You don't realize how fast it moves until you're in it. And so maybe it will feel less scary then. But depending on some students' career paths and where they want to go for a career, they should be thinking minimum bachelor's, if not master's or graduate level degree. But students who maybe aren't quite sure where they want to go or what type of career track they want to be in, an associate's program at community college is a really great way to start because of the cost components. So right now, community college is free for students as long as they can file a FAFSA and have Massachusetts residency and take a minimum 2 classes a semester. So we tie very few stipulations to that program. And it allows students to really start exploring, where they might want to go for a career, but also allows them to take some of the core general classes that are required pretty much regardless of program. So we can line them up with English Composition 1 and 2, their science requirement, their history requirement, their math requirement. So we can line all those courses up for them and get them started on the associate's track. Or maybe they've taken now a criminal justice class and they want to transfer over to Bridgewater and take a victimology concentration. We can line them up for the transfer there as well. So students who maybe aren't as strong in school, aren't quite sure where they want to start, community college is a great place for them to start to kind of get their bearings in college, but also understanding the higher their degree attainment, the higher their long-term earning potentials as well. So we have a few different types of colleges and universities. So we have public versus private. So that's typically the biggest differentiation. So public would be anything in the UMass system, UNH, URI, UConn, UMaine, SUNY. Those are all public schools that are in different systems. Private would be your BCs, your BUs, your Northeasterns, your Yales. Private doesn't necessarily mean Division I or Ivy. Private is like Curry College or Nichols College, Providence College. So it is pretty much anything that isn't state run and gets state funding. So they do all their own funding internally. They're a private school. They can kind of set their own curriculums. They don't have as much oversight by the state. There's also for-profit schools that would be like your University of Phoenix. So we tend to encourage students to go more towards the public and private schools. We want them to have a regional accreditation for the credits to transfer. Some of the for-profit ones do, some of them don't. So we tend to encourage the publics and the privates as opposed to the for-profit schools. A lot of the schools, the difference is a baccalaureate versus an associate's degree as well. So a baccalaureate school would be anyone who has the minimum 4-year degree. The associate's degree would typically be a community college. Most community colleges only award the 2-year associate degree programs. The baccalaureates honor minimum 4-year. So some of them may offer doctoral or graduate level programs as well. But if they're a baccalaureate school, they do offer a minimum bachelor's level degree. Liberal arts schools are those that kind of are a little bit more well-rounded. They don't really have a specialty area. They have a wide variety of programs. So students who are less sure of where they want to study or what major they want, liberal arts is a really great option. So that would be like Wheaton, Stonehill, Holy Cross. Those are all liberal art private schools. On the side of the publics, that would be like Mass College of Liberal Arts, North Adams, or even like a Bridgewater State or Worcester State. They offer a wide variety of programs. Again, community colleges, 2-year programs and certificate programs, but you can also transfer your credits to the 4-year schools for the bachelor's degree as well. So in this area, that would be like Massasoit, Bristol, CCRI, if you're looking kind of on the Rhode Island side. And then there's also institutions that have a special focus. So arts colleges would be like Mass College of Art, RISD. They have very specific art focuses. They typically offer Bachelor of Fine Arts programs, so BFAs. A lot of times they require portfolios up front to be reviewed for their freshman year. The portfolio is a huge portion that they review as part of the application package if you're looking specifically at art school. There's also single-sex colleges like Smith. Single-sex colleges tend to be more predominantly female, so that's typically what you see for the single-sex colleges, is predominantly female. So Smith and Simmons would be 2 examples of that in the area. Simmons does offer graduate programs to men, but their undergraduate program is purely female. We also have religiously affiliated colleges. So that would be Assumption, Holy Cross, Providence College, Stonehill College, St. Anselm. They have some type of religious affiliation to them. A lot of times it's Catholic leaning in terms of that religious affiliation. With those schools, there might be a religion requirement as part of the curriculum, just because they have that tied into their mission and how they were founded. And then we also have our STEM schools. That would be like your WPI, your MIT, your Wentworth, where they really have a heavy focus on engineering, science, math, and technology. Most students in those schools are majoring in something within the STEM field. So how do I know what college is right for me? These tend to be the kind of questions we ask students. What is the right school? What does the right fit look like? Some of it is size and location. You see yourself succeeding in a really big school? Do you like the idea of 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 students? Or do you feel like that's overwhelming? Maybe you want to be one of like 3,000 students. I know for me, thinking of a large school was very overwhelming coming from a high school of 800. I really wanted to keep it small. So for me, even doing 3,000, I felt like was a huge increase from 800. And that was like, all right, that's enough for right now. But then when I went to graduate school and there were 10,000 students, I was like, oh, this is fine. Like, I don't know why I thought this would be overwhelming, because you're at a different point in life at each time that you're looking. So it's really important to know what's going to be the right size for you. Also, what's the right location? Do you want to be close by? Are you worried about being too far away from family? Or do you want to be a plane ride away where maybe you can't come home for Thanksgiving? So it's looking at kind of those pieces is what size are you looking for and how far away are you looking to go? And also knowing that the size of the campus may also dictate the size of your classes. So if your campus size is smaller, your class sizes are probably going to be smaller. If you're a much larger school, you're probably going to have large lecture style classes where maybe you have 90 or 100 students in a class with one professor. So that is also something to take into consideration is what is the class size of the classes that you're taking at that particular school. Some schools offer housing. They guarantee it all 4 years. Some do not, especially in Boston. So for example, UMass Boston typically will guarantee the housing freshman year. And then after that, you're on your own. So you either have to commute, you have to find housing in the city, in the Dorchester area. They have a housing office to help you find apartments, but it's not guaranteed housing. Boston College will guarantee it for you 3 out of 4 years. So junior year, you have to find your own off-campus housing, but they'll give you housing freshman, sophomore, senior year. Some schools are more removed from the city, like Stonehill guarantee it all 4 years. So how important is it for you to have housing all 4 years? How flexible are you at getting off-campus housing? So that's another piece to consider is, are you looking to commute from home? Then you want the campus to be close. Do you want the 4-year housing guaranteed? If so, maybe the Boston schools aren't going to be the right fit for you because you're going to have to find housing at some point for a lot of those colleges. So that is something to ask on your tours. The other piece is test scores, GPAs, and selectivity. So typically, the more applications a school receives, the more competitive it is, the harder it is to gain entry. So a lot of times they're looking at a combination of test scores and GPAs as kind of the main deliberating factor for determining admission to the programs. At the state schools level, at UMass and Bridgewater, typically the higher your GPA is, the more flexible they can be about your SAT score. The lower your GPA is, the more important that SAT score is. It operates on a sliding scale. So the lower the GPA, the higher the SAT needs to be. The higher the GPA, the more flexible the test score can be. Some schools are test optional, where you don't have to send any test scores in. Some are mandated if they're a very selective program or you're applying to a program such as nursing. So even if school is test optional, they may say it's test optional except our nursing program. Nursing is required. So that is something also to consider, is what schools are going to require testing, which ones are not. A lot of schools will take the SAT or the ACT. So those are the two main testing options. A lot of times if you submit the SAT and the ACT, they will take the stronger of the two into consideration for your file. And then if you are taking the SAT, at least for the public schools, they will do what they call a super score. So they'll take the math off the highest test and the English off the highest test, put them together and give you an SAT score that may be higher than either one separate. So there are those options for super scoring. So as you're touring the private schools, you might want to ask about the super scoring option. Sometimes major comes into play as well. I was at Bridgewater and I had a student come up who was like, I just love Bridgewater so much. I can't wait to be a nurse there. We don't have nursing. So I'm like, what's more important to you? Do you really have this dream to be a nurse, or do you really want to go to Bridgewater? Because you can't have both. You have to pick what's more important to you. And if you really want to be a nurse, then this is not the right college for you. So sometimes it does come down to major. What major is the best fit for you? What major are you eyeing? And your major may dictate what schools you're applying to. Cost is always a factor. So always encourage students to fill out a FAFSA. So FAFSA is a free application for financial aid. Everyone should fill it out. That financial aid application is typically for public funding. A lot of times for the private schools, they have what's called the CSS profile. You fill that one out once. That's typically for their private and endowed scholarships and funding. So if you're looking at private schools, you'll most likely be filling out both forms. And so that's to take cost off the sticker price. Most schools, you're not going to pay the sticker price that's on there. It's just kind of depending on how much financial aid you receive, what that final price tag is. Right now, for community college, it's free, as long as you're kind of meeting the stipulations we set, which is the FAFSA, the 6 credits, and that you're Massachusetts resident. Very, very flexible. But what's coming out too is UMass Dartmouth, for example, if your household income is under 75,000, they're doing free tuition and fees, not housing, but the tuition and fees. In Bridgewater State, it's actually 125,000 or less. So there are four-year schools that are offering really great options for students. So you definitely want to make sure you are aware of the costs. Typically, you're going to get larger financial aid packages from the private schools because their cost is more expensive. So your package might be higher, but that's because the overall cost is higher. So it could end up being that you're still paying more for the private school than the public school, but your package is bigger. So you really have to kind of look at those pieces as well and decide what's going to be the right cost for you and what do you feel comfortable with paying for college. Sports and activities are also important. I know when I was looking
Sorry, can I
oh,
just jump in for 1 second on the
yep.
cost? Because one of the things we do encourage, especially at this point, as you're just starting to explore, is to not rule out either. I know sometimes parents will say, well, you can't look at these schools because here's our maximum, or that we can do, and they look at that sticker price. And again, I think when you start to look at things like GPA and activities and test scores, that price may, depending on the school and your students' particular skill sets, balance out to close to what another school that's cheaper sticker price would look like. So especially in the exploration stage, don't just look at the price they put on the website and say, well, that school's out of reach, because it may not be, depending on your situation.
And then we also have the sports and activities. So if it's really important to go to a really strong, like college sport going school, even if you're not playing, then you're probably going to be looking at some of those D1 teams. My cousin's down at University of Alabama right now, living the best life, going to football games all the time. But so for her, it was very important to have that large school, strong sports going culture. Very, very important for her. For me, it was more, did I want a campus ministry or did I want a swim team? So sometimes it's more of those smaller considerations of what's more important, like a strong volunteer program, or I've been swimming for 6 years and I think I might want to continue swimming. So those are some of those questions that students will have as they start kind of narrowing down their lists is what's most important under sports and activities for them. And lastly is the personal fit. There's no way to really define personal fit. It's just like a feeling that you get when you're at a particular school. Stonehill was the first school I toured, and I fell in love and everything compared to Stonehill. And so it is really important to go on those campus tours to figure out what the personal fit is. It was that it was small, it was Catholic, it had a strong volunteer program, it wasn't that far from home. Like it checked off so many boxes that then when I was going to other schools, and I toured schools on the North Shore, I toured schools in Boston, and it kind of kept going back to I think I want a small school. I think I want something that is a little bit more homey feeling. I don't want to feel like I'm getting lost on campus. So it is very important to tour campuses. And I would even encourage students to start touring even as a sophomore, so that way, once you're a senior, you really have a nice list and can really narrow down where you want to maybe even go back for a second tour or an open house for.
Yeah, we definitely, as part of our process, encourage our sophomores to go out. We're so lucky in that we have so many different kinds of campuses. Even if you really are not interested in, let's say, Northeastern, but you want to get a feel for what it's like in the city, you can go in and have that experience. I think the only thing we miss are like the Alabamas and the Michigans. Like we can't replicate those around here, but just about every other kind of school you can. So even if you're not like at the point where you're picking schools that you really are interested in, we encourage at least take some time, drive through some campuses, maybe do some open houses or something like that, just because you have that opportunity to look at different kinds of campuses. So sorry to keep interrupting, Ashley.
That's okay. And then in terms of figuring out what type of school you're looking for, these are kind of the primary ways that students tend to narrow down their lists. So number one is always speaking with guidance counselors, school counselors, teachers. So they're the ones guiding them through this process, probably helping them build out lists, going over applications, going over essays. They're really kind of taking the lead on this search within the school system. So it's very, very important to make sure to have a good relationship with your counselor so that way they can help build the best list possible for you, to try and figure out what's going to be the right schools to explore, what might be really good fits for this list, what's something that maybe you haven't thought about that could be a good option. After that, definitely college fairs. So most schools will host a college fair. They'll invite in 50, 60, 70 schools, and it's your chance to stop by quickly, ask some questions to their admissions representative, grab some brochures, grab some information, and then from there, you decide, is this somewhere I want to explore in more depth? If that does happen, a lot of times schools will also have high school visits. So they'll bring a rep in for maybe a half hour, 45 minutes. So at that point, then you can ask much more detailed information to the rep. They can answer more detailed questions that pertain to you as opposed to more general information. And then that also allows you to build that relationship with a counselor at the colleges that you're thinking about attending. Highly, highly, highly recommend campus tours. Tour every type of school you can. If you think you maybe are interested, definitely tour the school. It's the best way to really get a sense of the culture of the campus, and it allows you to meet current students. So your tour guide is always a student. They're going to have the best idea of what it's like to be a student on campus. You can ask them questions about being a student, about their classes, about how they're involved, what clubs they're in, what sports they're in. And it's a really good way to get a snapshot of what would it be like if I was a student at that school. Admitted student days and open houses are similar programs at different points in the process. Open houses typically at the start of the process. Again, as a sophomore and junior, definitely go to open houses. It's usually very informational, not so transactional. Really gives you an idea of these are the programs we offer. These are the additional supports we have. These are our students. This is what our students do after they graduate. Are you interested in us? That's essentially what an open house is. Accepted student day is on the back end. So the accepted student day is, yay, congratulations, you've been admitted. Is this where you want to go? So this is what you can see yourself as now that you are an admitted student. So similar types of programs with definitely different results. The open house is, this is what we offer. Is this what you are thinking you might want? The accepted student day is now you're accepted. Now we are an option on your table. Is this where you want to go for the next 2 or 4 years? Some schools will do college visit days or overnights. So if your school does offer that, it's a great way to, get really a sense of what that is. It's usually a one-on-one shadow with a student. They try to make them freshmen and sophomores so they're a little bit more relatable to you, more entry-level classes. It typically gets you right into a classroom, lets you really get a sense of this is what a classroom would be like here. A lot of times they do try to pair you up with a similar major. I did the shadow days at Wheaton and at Stonehill. I definitely felt they were a great option and really gave me a sense of, this is what classes would look like. At Wheaton, I was impressed. I'm left-handed. They had left-handed desks. And I was like, oh, there's a left-handed desk. I've never seen this before. So sometimes it's the small things that allow you to really kind of get a sense of, is this where I see myself for the next part of my educational journey? And it's always good to connect with current students or alum. So if you know someone who graduated this year, who by the time you're a senior, they're a sophomore, they're a great resource because they've been 2 years there. So they have a great idea of, what their program is like, what their campus is like. Do they like their classes? Were they able to transition to college easily? And then definitely follow people's social media. Pretty much every school has social media, and then every department has social media. So it is a great way to see kind of what the goings on are at the campus and what different programs they might offer. In terms of college applications, most schools are going to be what's on the Common App. So the Common application goes to hundreds of different schools. You fill it out once, it goes to wherever you send it. The downside of the Common application is it's kind of a long application. It asks all kinds of questions. So you might have short responses. They might ask what classes you're currently in. They might say, what grades did you have in those classes? All of that is self-reported. They want to know what activities you've been in. And most of the time with the Common application for most schools, there will be a supplement section. So that supplement section a lot of times is what major are you looking to study? Are you looking to live on or off campus? And they tend to have a supplemental essay. So you have your general essay that everybody gets. And then most of the time with the supplemental forms, there'll be a supplemental essay. That supplemental essay tends to be, why do you want to attend that school? That's very, very common supplemental essay question. A lot of people form write their essays. You don't want to say, I am so excited to attend Salem State and you're applying to UMass. So you want to make sure you are putting the proper name in the proper essay, even if you're using it like a form essay. At Bridgewater, one of my favorite things was actually reading the essays. I did very much enjoy them. I read every single one. And I will say the most popular topics, so these are what I'd recommend avoiding, is how much I love the beach and how peaceful it is, my sports accomplishment or injury, or my grandparent passed away and this is what I learned. And then I wanted to omit the grandparent and not the student. So those are always the top three that I would read over and over and over again. Sometimes I'd read 3 or 4 or 5 sports essays in a row. So you want to make sure you have a really unique slant with some of those more popular topics that people tend to choose. And you want to make sure it applies directly to you. So it might be about someone else, but I don't want to admit your mom to college. I want to admit you to college. The other piece to be aware of is, remember, I was going to be an English teacher. My background is in English. When I read essays, it is also looking at proper grammar and punctuation. I have read essays that do not have a single period in them. I have read essays that have no paragraph breaks in them. I have read essays that read like text messages. So it is a formal piece of writing, and you should still be following formal rules of grammar. There is always a way of utilizing creative writing within those essays in a great manner. But to use the letter U instead of writing out you is not the most creative way to do so. So making sure that you are following those rules of grammar when writing the essays is also really important. Like I said, always my favorite part of an application. You really do get a very unique sense of who that student is, but you still want to make sure you're putting out a formal piece of writing with those essays. Because if I'm seeing 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 grammatical errors in a 250-word essay, that makes me question if they're ready for college level writing. So something to definitely consider, that essays do get read. They don't just get slid into the folder, especially if you're applying for more competitive programs. Essays are read. They are read with intention. They are read for content, but they can also be read for grammar. So to really be aware of those pieces within the essay. Some schools will also ask for letters of recommendation. A lot of times it's 2 letters of recommendation. Typically one comes from a counselor and one from a teacher. We tend to say, have a nice relationship with your counselor so they can write you a great recommendation letter. And then pick a teacher that you have a good relationship with, or it's in a content area that you're looking to study. So if you're thinking you want to be a nurse or a doctor, you probably want to have a recommendation from a biology or a chemistry teacher, someone who can speak to your background in the sciences. Some schools will ask for interviews as well. So if you are going for a highly competitive program or a highly competitive school, you could be asked to do an interview. Since COVID, some of those are now on Zoom. Sometimes they are in-person interviews. You meet at a coffee shop and do your interview there. So to be prepared that you may need to speak directly to an admissions representative about why you deserve to have a seat in their particular class. So be aware that some programs will ask for the interview component. We talked about test scores already. Some schools are test optional, some it's required, some might be based off the program themselves. So you do want to make sure you are focusing on your SATs and that you are taking them so that way you're not taking any schools off the table who may say, yes, we need a test score. And then lastly, high school transcripts are very important. We need current transcripts and then final official. Official always means it's sent by the school directly to the school. It is not supplied by the student. If the student supplies it, it's unofficial, it doesn't count. So you do need to make sure to talk to your counselor to make sure that those official transcripts get submitted. Right now, as freshman, sophomore, those grades and those years are very, very, very important. Senior year is less important than sophomore year because senior year, we typically only see one marking period, maybe two. We don't see the whole year, so it doesn't weigh as heavily. Freshman, sophomore, junior year, we see the final averages, and so those years are very important. We never see the final senior year grades when making a decision. When I was at the four-year school, sometimes I was making admissions decisions on 3 years worth of curriculum, freshman, sophomore, junior year. So you don't want to wait till junior year to buckle down and do well with your academics because at that point, it might be too late for some of the more competitive schools and competitive programs. You really do want to make sure that you are doing well right from the get-go freshman year so that way you have the strongest GPA and the strongest opportunities for admission into those competitive schools and competitive programs, but also for scholarship as well. A lot of times, schools will offer fee waivers. So a lot of times that is income tied, or maybe you came to an open house, you went on a campus tour, and they gave you a code so you could apply for free afterwards. If you don't have a fee waiver, so for Bristol, we never charge a fee, but for the four-year schools, most of them do. It's typically $50, $60, $70 per application. So if you're applying to 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 schools, it does add up very quickly in terms of those application fees. So just be aware that most four-year schools do have fees. Fee waivers tend to be tied to income and or attending events and getting those free waivers.
Can I interrupt just for again? Sorry, just for a few things there, just specific to Norton. So for your transcripts and your letters of recommendation, that will all go through the something called Naviance, which all of the students have accounts for. It's also how you can do some career and major exploration, as well as some college exploration as well. Guidance counselors we'll do a presentation for you your junior year, the beginning of your junior year, and then we'll do a parent one as well, explaining how that all works. So long as you use the system and stay within our deadlines, we will get all of that stuff to the high schools. To the colleges directly from us electronically, with the exception of maybe a recommendation letter from somebody who's outside of Norton. But we'll get all into that. It's a little bit more than folks need to know here in terms of what we do with Naviance, but that will be one of the things we'll be working on in your junior year. And then our college essays, all of the students write their college essays the end of their junior year in their English classes and can be reviewed by their English teachers. So we try to work really hard to make sure some of those errors do not occur. However, sometimes kids will rewrite their essay over the summer, or parents will take a look and say, we don't like that essay, we're going to write another one. So if that's the case, make sure somebody does edit it, as Ashley had said, because that's really important. So again, sorry to interrupt, just wanted to kind of explain how it's gonna go here in Norton.
So in terms of standard application, you want to make sure you check all the college websites to make sure they are on a Common App or on their own individual application. Like I said, Common Application standardized, one application, send it to as many schools as you want. Nice and easy. But so Common App will probably be your best friend for the majority of schools that you're applying to. In terms of your application options, the terms you're going to see very regularly are early action, early decision, rolling decision, and regular decision. So for those particular programs, early action typically means that you're just going to receive your decision earlier in the cycle. So a lot of times early action might have as early as like a November deadline, but then you might get your decision before Christmas. So for me, I definitely wanted the early action because I just wanted to know I had somewhere to go, and it took off some of that pressure, and it didn't even have to be my top school. As long as I had a letter from somewhere, I was like, okay, I'm good. I have somewhere to go. I have a college to go to in the fall. I'm golden. So sometimes it is nice to do the early action, and you could get your decision as early as December. So it is very convenient for people. Definitely tend to encourage it for students who are looking at for highly competitive programs like a nursing program. A lot of times those will have November deadlines, as well as for students who have strong GPAs, who have strong applications. Definitely go in early so that you're in kind of that first pool that they're looking at. Early decision sounds very similar to early action. Again, you're still applying typically in November. However, early decision is typically a binding application. So you put in one early decision file to your one school that you intend to enroll in, and that is it. So it is a binding application. If they accept you, you're basically saying, yep, you accept me, I'm coming here. So it is a binding piece, something to very seriously think about because you might receive that acceptance for early decision prior to seeing a financial aid package. A lot of schools sometimes have ways that you can pull out if the package is not high enough, but it is something to really think about when thinking early decision, that it is a binding contract when you submit an early decision application. Early action, you can send as many applications as you want. Early action, it is not binding. You do not need to go there. It simply gets you your decision sooner. Early decision is a binding contract. A lot of schools will have what they call regular decision. That's typically around the February, March area. Then you typically get your decisions March and April. And typically May 1 is the deposit deadline for colleges. So most colleges want their numbers by May 1st. So that way, if they have to go waitlist for programs, they have the opportunity to do so before September rolls around. Rolling admission is typically what the community colleges operate on, other than health programs like nursing and dental. Those have hard, strict deadlines, just like any other school. But if you're looking for biology, business, education, very much a rolling application. We will admit students in August for September. So very flexible with rolling, even for some of the four-year schools, for some of their less competitive programs. Very flexible with rolling simply means that we will review applications for that program until we do not have any seats available. Very, very flexible option. We tend to tell students apply to a mix of reach, safety, and probable schools. So 2 or 3 reach, 2 or 3 probable, 2 or 3 safety. So that way you have an idea of like, yes, these are schools I'm definitely going to get into pending something goes crazy. 2 or 3 that are, yep, like looking at their criteria, looking at my criteria, it's a good match. I should get into those schools. And then 2 or 3 that are a reach of, I may or may not get into those schools. I know that it's potential, but depending on the pool, I may or may not get a seat. So it is good to have kind of a mix of those. The community colleges are always a nice option for a safety school because we do admit everyone to the community college level, outside of nursing, dental hygiene, health, selective health programs. But anyone looking for liberal arts, engineering, biology, education, English, humanities, communication, we will admit students to those programs regardless of what the GPA or test scores are. So the community college, again, is a nice option as a safety school. When I go into presentations for schools, I say, I understand we might be your safety for financial reasons, for GPA reasons, whatever your reasons are. But it's a nice option to know that you always have a safety net in place for where you're going to attend next. How to narrow down your decision. Most common is looking at cost of attendance. So we talked about that a little bit earlier, but to not necessarily take one off the table this early in the game, depending on what that sticker price is. You don't want to start eliminating schools until you see what those packages come back as. Because for me, when the packages came back, essentially Stonehill to commute was going to be the same as Bridgewater living on. And so it was kind of like, which one do I want to do more for my bachelor's degree? So sometimes the packages do come out to be fairly similar. The other piece is job placements. So where do you tend to see students get jobs after graduation? Do they have a high placement rate for students 6-12 months out of college? Those tend to be very, very common reasons for why students pick schools, but cost is almost always number one. What is the cost of this program? What is my debt going to look like at the end of the program? Other pieces that do come into play are those co-curricular activities. So the sports, the clubs, the leadership opportunities, the convenience of how close or how far it might be from home, the culture and diversity. So if you're looking for a very diverse campus and a school is not very diverse, then it might not be the right fit for you. The opportunities for internships and co-ops. So if you're looking for a co-op option, Northeastern is always the one that everyone goes to for co-ops. But in terms of internships, most schools will offer an internship office, a career services office to assist you with internship placements. So where are students getting internships? Are they getting internships in, really strong industries and really popular areas in really competitive job markets? Or are they doing more local internships? Those are the types of questions to ask. Again, the size, how big or how small you think that school will be to satisfy what you need as a student, and also the study abroad and student support services. So for some students, study abroad is very important. For some, it is not important at all. Some want the ability to study abroad for a year. Some might want a semester. Some might say, I want to go for 3 weeks in the summer. So what are the study abroad options, and where do students go for study abroad? Does everyone go to Italy, England, and France? Or are you looking to go to Costa Rica or Japan, somewhere a little bit different? And do they offer those types of partnerships and programs? With support services, a lot of times that comes down to disability and accessibility services. So if you've previously had a 504 IEP for a learning difference, how can that school then benefit you and make sure you're successful at the college level? So the IEP and 504 typically a K-12 binding contract for that particular learning difference. It does not translate right over to the college level. You would typically meet with the disability services office, you'd meet with a learning specialist, they'd help build a plan there, and then you would present that to your professor. So it very much becomes at the college level, you advocate for yourself within the curriculum and within the classroom. If you wait till November, say, yes, I need assistance, that does not retro to your September assignments. So you need to make sure that if that is something you want to take advantage of, you're taking advantage of those opportunities earlier rather than later to ensure that you have the best opportunity for success when the classroom comes in September. Again, just to kind of recap, navigating the admissions decisions, early notifications, early decisions, regular decision. Early notifications is early action. That is a non-binding decision. Typically, you'll get that usually December, January. Early decision is binding. They accept you, you're going there, pending somehow the numbers don't work out on the cost of attendance. There's typically a loophole option for cost of attendance reasons. Regular decision is the regular deadline that everyone's asked to apply by. You make sure you're in by that deadline, so you're reviewed for that particular pool, for that particular seat, and then you become rolling, fill until there's no seats available in the program. Some programs and some schools may have a wait list. So they might say, you're right on the borderline. We're not quite sure if you can handle our curriculum. We're going to wait list you and wait to see those students for May 1st, how many of them accept the seat and how many decline the seat. That's why they ask for a decision by a certain date. So then they can look at their program in English and say, we still have 10 seats available. Let's take 10 more students off the wait list. So wait lists may mean you do get the opportunity to enroll at that school. My brother deposited somewhere else, got off a wait list, ended up going to school he got off the wait list on. Wait lists do happen, and wait lists do pull students off the wait list. But you shouldn't then guarantee that you're going to be pulled off a wait list. It means you're not accepted, you're not denied, you're kind of in a holding area while they wait to see kind of how their numbers fall. So if you are on the wait list for your top school, you should say, okay, what's my backup plan if I'm not pulled off a wait list? Waitlists can also happen for particular programs, especially programs like nursing. So typically there's more nursing students than nursing seats available. Pretty much every nursing program will hold a wait list. Everyone's applying to multiple nursing programs. Every nursing program will probably hit their wait list to some extent. So that holding pattern could be for the school itself, or it could be for a particular program within the school. So they might say, yes, you're admitted to the program for biology, but you're waitlisted in nursing. So there are options within that waitlist between the program and the school. And then deferral means your application is still in review and they're requesting additional information. So if you were to apply to Bridgewater for early action, we typically did not deny out of our early action pool. We would defer you into our regular decision pool. What that means is right now, what we're seeing is a little bit too low. So if you've only sent us freshman, sophomore, junior year grades, we now want to see senior year grades. If you didn't send us any test scores, we'd like to see test scores. So it's essentially telling you we're not ready to admit you yet. Send us some additional information so that we can see how you're doing senior year, so we can see how your test scores are, so we can make the decision then. So again, a waitlist and deferral isn't to deny. It means that both times they're waiting for more information. How to pay for college. So the way it tends to work is you should always fill out your FAFSA. So FAFSA is number one, fill out a FAFSA. Everyone takes the FAFSA. CSS profile used by the private schools. Most private schools will use the CSS profile for their restricted and endowed scholarships. Essentially, when you see a financial aid package, it comes out to a few different areas. So one is grants and scholarships. That is free money for the student. You do not need to pay it back. Free money is great money. You want to see lots of grants and scholarships. Then you might see loans. So loans are typically subsidized or unsubsidized. So typically, if you have to take a loan, we tend to say take the subsidized loan. Usually with the subsidized loan, you're not paying the interest on the loan, whereas the unsubsidized loan, you're paying on the loan. And the last piece is typically work study. So you are working on campus, you're earning a paycheck. You can choose whether you want to use that payment from your work study job to pay for books or to put towards your tuition payment, or you could use it to go out on the weekend to a Red Sox game. They don't tell you how to use your work study payment. It's a job. You earn that money. But the idea is that hopefully you're using it for expenses for college. What's nice with the work study is they do have to work around your class schedule. So you can say, sorry, I can't work Tuesdays and Thursdays from 10 to 12. I'm in class. And they have to not schedule you Tuesdays and Thursdays from 10 to 12 because you are in class. So as opposed to going to your outside job and saying, Market Basket, I can't work 10 to 12 on Tuesdays and Thursdays because I'm in class. They're like, but we need that shift covered. So it is a very different process for having a job off campus versus having a job on campus. The on-campus job always has to work with your class schedule. The off-campus job can work with it, but maybe a little bit less nice and willing to like work with your campus schedule with your classes. If after all that packaging comes out, there's still a remaining balance, there's a few different ways that can go. If you have any type of college savings, that could go towards it, or you might have to take a private loan to compensate the difference. So we always say take the federal aid first, take what's in that package first before going to a private funding source. And we always say, apply for outside grants, outside scholarships. Everyone has a scholarship, like Walmart has a scholarship, the youth basketball team has a scholarship, everyone's got a scholarship. When I was in school, I applied for an essay competition through Mr. Tux. I don't use tuxes, but it was an essay competition, and I got that scholarship, and I also got 2 tickets to Fenway Park, and I was probably more excited because I had never been to Fenway Park, and I got to go down on the diamond more than I was about the $1,000 that came with that scholarship. So everywhere has scholarships, so definitely take advantage of all the scholarship opportunities. It might be writing 100 letters and 100 essays, and what everyone wants is that one big $50,000 scholarship that everybody wants. But if you do 10 $1,000 scholarships, you're still getting $10,000. It's just in smaller increments. And typically those smaller increment ones, they do tend to award more because they can divvy up the money to more students. So sometimes it is in your best interest to apply for the smaller scholarships as opposed to the larger one. So this is just going a little bit more detail over FAFSA. So FAFSA for 25-26 was supposed to release this year for December 1. They keep changing that date on us. They did do some updates to it in the last year. So last year's FAFSA did release very late. So the hope was that it would not release quite as late as it did last year. Typically, hopefully by the time you're seniors, the FAFSA will be releasing October 1 like it typically does. Right now, it's been on this December timeline with the changes to the program. We ask everyone to set up a FAFSA ID, the student as well as the parent and guardian. Everyone does have to have an account. And then typically the previous year's tax returns are used to file the FAFSA. So if you are having any issues with the FAFSA, us at Bristol, we can assist you with the FAFSA filing. A lot of schools will do FAFSA workshops to make sure everything is being filled out correctly because it is so important to make sure this document is correct so it's going to the schools correctly so that they can try to award the highest package possible. But we try to help students at Bristol fill out the FAFSA if they're overwhelmed by it. And I know a lot of high schools tend to try to assist with this process as well. In terms of college success, what's really about is initiating, participating, and advocating. So students should be initiating for themselves of what do I want to do for the rest of my life? It's a loaded question to ask a 17-year-old. What do you want to do forever? But that is kind of the starting process. What do I want to do? What am I looking for? What do I want the next 4 years or 2 years or 6 years to look like for me? They need to be an active participant in the process. They should be the ones asking questions to college counselors. They should say, okay, these are the schools I really want to tour. What types of programs are you thinking about? Be an active participant in what that process looks like. And part of college is really learning to advocate for yourself, whether that be I have a learning difference and I need assistance with the classroom and getting accommodations in place. My counselor and my parents have always advocated for me, but now I'm 18, I have to advocate for myself in the classroom. It could be, I'm having trouble with my roommate. What do I do? How do you have that discussion with your roommate? It could be, I am deathly afraid of talking to other people, but I'm going to be an orientation leader. So it really is about challenging yourself in these multiple different areas, but initiating the process, being an active participant in the process, and then advocating for yourself once you're in college. In terms of Bristol, just to give a little bit more background about us, we're a very accessible school. We have 5 locations: Fall River, Attleboro, Taunton, New Bedford, as well as a large online presence. Students can mix and match their classes across those campuses. So they could take 2 in Taunton and 2 online if they want to be a full-time student. Some programs like business and psychology, you can pretty much take fully online. If you're looking for a program like nursing or dental hygiene, they're going to be all in person in Fall River. So it really kind of depends on the student and the program, what that looks like. And we do offer full and part-time options for students. We're highly affordable. Right now we're free. You can't get much more affordable than that, as well as various transfer options. So that's everything from mass transfer. So transferring from us to a 4-year school within the UMass or the state university system is a very seamless process, as well as the support services that we offer, especially in the disability services area. In terms of cost comparison, again, like I said, right now we're free. But in comparison, local public university, you're looking at about 13,000. For a local STEM institution, about 43,000. Local private, 44,000. And that's just tuition and fees. That does not include your housing. Just to be aware of that piece of it as well. This is just a tuition fees column. It does not include housing, room, and board. In terms of joint admissions and articulation agreements with Bristol, we have over 100 different agreements with schools. I was talking prior to everyone joining about the new one we have with Stonehill. So that is our newest articulation agreement. So it's completing 2 years with us, having satisfactory completion for all your classes, always being in satisfactory academic progress. They're going to guarantee admission into Stonehill as a junior, and I believe they're taking 50% off the tuition. So it is a huge option and opportunity for students who are looking to save some money on the first 2 years, get some of their general education classes done, and then transfer over to a private school. We have articulation agreements up like that, where it's very generalized. And then we have some that are very specific for certain like engineering programs or psychology programs that maybe we don't have in this area, but URI has. So some of those programs are very specific articulation agreements, and some are very broad, like the mass transfer program. So mass transfer is the program with the UMass and state universities. So essentially anything that's transfer based: engineering, biology, education, communication, chemistry, business. You do your first 2 years with us. You do your general education and introductory courses in that major. You finish with us, get your associate's degree, your 60 credits, slide on over to the bachelor's degree at that school. You need 120 for a bachelor's degree. So 60 plus 60 equals 120. They guarantee that those credits come over as long as you get a C minus or better. As long as you get a 2.7 GPA or higher cumulatively, you're guaranteed admission into the school. You don't have to pay an application fee. You don't have to do an essay. You just have to do the applications and the transcript. It's that easy to do the transfer process. In terms of our students, we see the bulk of our students transfer to Bridgewater and UMass Dartmouth. Our third most popular is UMass Amherst. So we definitely do see students really transfer within the public sector very highly. On the private side, where we tend to see students is Southern New Hampshire University. That tends to be more for our 25 plus population who may have work, lives, families, kids. They have a very large online program. And so therefore we see a lot of students gravitate towards them because of the online specialty. And we also see students go to like Brockton School of Nursing, MCPHS, Labouré, because again, more nursing students than seats available. So we see a lot of students applying to other nursing programs externally as well. In terms of Bristol outside the classroom, we have the option for developmental coursework. So if a student maybe isn't quite ready for college level work, we can give them paired classes so that way they're still taking statistics, but they're taking a paired class so they're getting support within statistics. We have a variety of different learning commons and learning labs. So those are typically our libraries. We have them at every campus. And so that has everything from writing, tutoring, to working with a librarian to schedule how to look up research projects, how to cite scholarly articles, all of those pieces that kind of are that transition from high school to college writing and learning. Our display services that we spoke about previously, making a plan and providing that to the professor. Our career and transfer services, one part of that office is, okay, I'm doing my 2 years, I'm going into the field. How can we best prepare you for that? And then the other side is transfer of, okay, you're done for 2 years. Where are we going to next to finish off the bachelor's degree? All of our campuses do have mental health counseling available. So we can do short-term counseling and then if needed, refer out for external counseling for long-term counseling. Every campus has an academic advisor. The students with that academic advisor their whole time. So they are really able to develop a relationship with them and they can help figure out, where do I want to go? What type of program am I looking for? What type of career do I want? They can have those conversations repeatedly with that same advisor. And then we also have specialty service areas such as our Multicultural Center and our Student Veteran Center. In terms of the enrollment process at Bristol, is as simple as submitting an application. We are not a Common App school. Our application takes less than 10 minutes. We ask for you, the hardest question in our application is, what do you want to study? That's where everyone gets tripped up the most is, what do you want to study? Everything else is, where do you live? What's your phone number? What's your email? Are you a Massachusetts resident? Do you want to be photographed? Yes or no? Are you okay with text messages? Yes or no? Everything else is very, very quick and easy. Everyone gets stripped up on, what do you want to study? So that is probably the hardest question on our application. We start students in September, January, and June. So fall, spring, and summer start. For all of our programs, we're open enrollment, which essentially means you just need to finish high school to enroll into that program outside of our health programs. So nursing and dental hygiene in particular are highly competitive. We receive more applications than seats available. Typically for nursing, we're looking upwards of 200 applications for 96 seats. For dental hygiene, we're looking at 80 plus applications for 22 seats. For nursing last year, average GPA was right around a 3.7. For dental, because I'm the reader for dental, it was a 3.97. Highly, highly competitive programs at our community college in the health sciences. So those are competitive entry. The rest of the programs are open enrollment. You finish high school, you can enroll into them. That does include programs like biology and engineering. We do ask students to apply for FAFSA, especially if they're looking to take advantage of the Mass Reconnect and the Mass Educate the Free College programs. You do have to have a FAFSA on file. As far as supporting documents are concerned, all we ask for is the official transcript. That's it. Your official high school transcript. That's all we need. One, when you're applying, so we can see if you're exempted from placement testing. 2.7 B minus or higher. You don't have to take any placement testing. You go right into freshman level classes. And then one that's a final showing the graduation date. We will give credit for AP and CLEP scores. So typically with the AP scores, it's a 3 or higher on the exam. We get the AP score report. We give you the credits just like that. Super easy, super simple. It is based off the AP exam though. So if you get an A in AP Bio, but only a 2 on the exam, you will not get credit. It is based off the exam. If you are taking dual enrollment or early college classes at another school, so say you're taking a class at Massasoit or CCRI and you passed it and you want your credits to come over, we can transfer those credits on over for you. We do also offer dual enrollment here at Bristol. So students, especially juniors, tend to take the most advantage of the dual enrollment program. It allows you the opportunity to see what college classes like, earn college credit, maybe get ahead in a particular program, explore a particular major you're thinking about. There's a lot of benefits to dual enrollment, but you do have to be a strong student ready to take on essentially AP level coursework. A lot of times those classes are asynchronous online, which means you're almost in kind of a self-study and you need to really pace yourself for those particular classes. Once the student's admitted, we do all our acceptances by email. Again, we check first, do you need to take placement testing or do you have an exemption? It's 2.7 or higher for the exemption. We ask you to set up your Bristol account. We have an orientation that is mandated. That orientation can be done online or in person. And then right after that orientation, we will assign you your academic advisor to meet with to schedule your classes. So we do try to streamline things as much as possible, and try to make it as easy and harmless as possible to submit the application. Again, just to circle back around to mass transfer, it's a really great option for students to consider. It's the collaboration between the state schools at the community college, the UMass, and the state university level. Essentially, the difference between the state universities and the UMass, the state universities go up to graduate level degrees, the UMasses go up to doctorate level degrees, but both will award the baccalaureate degree. We have everyone do the general education foundation curriculum, and most students will elect the A to B degree pathway, the associates to bachelor's. Again, that's that minimum B average. You're guaranteed your admission. You transfer in as a junior, no application fee. Super, super easy process to do so. And we like to see our students take advantage of it. And then you can let me know if you have any additional questions.
Thank you so much, Ashley. If there's any questions, please throw them into the Q&A or the chat. While we're waiting on that, I just wanted to, again, thank you, Ashley, for taking time out tonight and going over all of this. And for parents, I know I don't think I hit record, so I'm going to sort of say what I said before, which is this is kind of step one for freshman and sophomore families, just to get an idea. Ashley did a great job of sort of outlining all of the pieces that are involved, and we try to do it a little bit at a time, so we're not giving you a fire hose your senior year or your junior year. So this is step one. Junior year we'll have both for the juniors themselves in school, but also for families we'll have kind of part one of the application process, which goes over a little bit more of what Ashley did here, but more specifically around the search process, how we use Naviance and some other tools to help students do a search, give some tips and tricks around those things, what needs to be done, starting to think about, the recommendation letters and so forth. And then part two will happen in the spring of junior year, where we really get down and dirty around the application process and what you need to do with Common App and what the students are going to need to do to link their Naviance accounts and Common App and all of the things that go with that. And then we have senior year, we do another kind of overview of the application process for maybe those who are not doing it junior year, but we like to encourage people to start that process the summer of junior year. Makes their senior year so much more enjoyable. We also offer two financial aid nights, typically one in the fall and one in the spring for junior and senior parents to attend. We have admissions reps come. We have on the spot admission days for a number of places as well. So there's a lot there. We have on our website in our department. We also have a college application or a college process. It's the entire booklet that really takes you again soup to nuts through every different piece, from even like first generation, all the different factors, how to use the NCAA portal if you're looking to go to college, play college sports. So there's a lot that we do. This is just step one, and Ashley did a absolutely phenomenal job. I don't see any questions or in the chat. This will be up on the website within a week or so, and people can access it there. So